Hey guys, what's going on? Jeb here, and in today's video, we're going to be doing a little bit of technical analysis on Bitcoin and the cryptocurrency markets, because if you've been watching the channel over the last couple of days, which I very much hope you have, then you may be aware that I have become bullish on Bitcoin. And I've become bullish on Bitcoin because I've watched Bitcoin break several key levels of resistance that I wanted to see Bitcoin break to confirm a new Bitcoin rally. And now that I believe we've entered a new rally, I also believe that there's a very good potential for this rally to be converted into a new proper Bitcoin bull run, which could bring us back to all-time high in the next 12 months. With all of that in mind, though, that doesn't necessarily mean that I don't foresee a correction coming. There is very much a possibility that Bitcoin could correct a little bit or straight up just trade sideways for the next 7 days or so. So in today's video, I want to discuss, is Bitcoin going to be breaking very bullish again? Are we going to see another major green candlestick like we've seen a couple of times here this week? Or is Bitcoin going to trade sideways over the next week or so? Or is Bitcoin going to correct? Because there's a lot to unpack here in the short term that I haven't covered very much on the channel in the last couple of days. But anyway, guys, before we get into today's video, if you enjoyed today's video, definitely consider dropping a like, hitting that subscribe button, and smashing the notification bell, guys. I say it every single day, and it does help the channel if you do it, so that's why I say it. But anyway, let's get right into it. Bitcoin is currently trading around $7,060. If we come over here to CoinMarketCap and give it a little refresh, we're going to see a very similar number. Bitcoin is down by about 1/4% over the last 24 hours, but really, that's just basically because of the way that the day has opened and closed. Bitcoin has basically been trading sideways over the last couple of days, over the last couple of hours, excuse me, over the last 36 hours or so. Bitcoin has been trading perfectly sideways. And as we can see, the rest of the altcoins are doing a very similar thing. We've talked about in the last two videos about how the altcoins tend to move in the same direction as Bitcoin and move a little bit further, and that's exactly what we're seeing today. Bitcoin had a little bit of a retracement, and the altcoins got a little carried away as well. We can see some of the altcoins are down 1 to 2%. Nothing major, really. The altcoins and Bitcoin are just moving sideways, kind of consolidating after the big runs that we've seen here over the last week or so. One that does stand out is EOS. EOS has been doing very, very well. I'm going to go ahead and jump to the EOS chart really quickly. I'm not going to be getting too in-depth on EOS, but I did want to point out that EOS has done phenomenally over the last couple of days. We can see that EOS, over just the last couple of days, has jumped about 23%. So if any of you guys have been investing in EOS, definitely made some good money. I just wanted to point that out. Let's get back onto the Bitcoin chart, But yeah, the rest of the altcoins aren't doing as well. If we sort by change over the last 24 hours, Noah coin is up by 123%. But other than that, we only see one other double-digit gainer. That's a triple-digit gainer. You don't see those very often. And obviously, you can never see a triple-digit loser unless you have a really bad altcoin like BitConnect coin or something. We also only see one double-digit loser. Overall, the market is rather neutral with a very definite red tinge, but the market just hasn't been moving very far in either direction. And really, the little bit of red that we're seeing is to be expected after the markets have been moving quite bullish over the last week or so. Bitcoin's dominance is continuing to drop a little bit. We've seen this drop by about 1% over the last couple of days. Nothing major, but that would be Bitcoin's dominance dropping would be an indication of a new rally coming. It would be an indication of bullish price action coming, because like I mentioned earlier, typically when Bitcoin is moving in one direction, the altcoins move even farther in that direction. And if Bitcoin's moving up and the altcoins are moving even farther in that direction, then obviously you would expect some of the valuation to be moving back into the altcoins and for Bitcoin's dominance to be going down, because the altcoins are moving faster than Bitcoin. And that's why a lot of times in rallies, what you see is you see Bitcoin's dominance start to go down as Bitcoin's price starts to go up. And that's not necessarily something that may be intuitive, but that is something that you see. And that is also kind of interesting. That also kind of points to an interesting pattern that we've seen here over the last 3 months or so, ever since early May, where Bitcoin's dominance has just been continuing to rise despite the rally that we saw back over here in July. Very interesting pattern. I think this is probably going to be peaking out somewhere up here around 55%, start plateauing and coming down, and the altcoins are going to have their day coming over the next couple of months. It really depends on where Bitcoin goes, because if Bitcoin continues this rally into a bull run, I definitely think Bitcoin dominance is going to go down. If this Bitcoin rally does fail, the Bitcoin dominance may indeed continue to rise as people start putting their money back into Bitcoin, which they believe is a safer investment rather than the more volatile altcoins. Another thing that we want to point out is that market capitalization is getting back close to that $250 billion mark that we've been looking at quite closely over the last couple of weeks. Anyway, let's get onto the Bitcoin chart, because there's a lot to unpack today. The first and foremost thing, the very first thing that I want to point out is this uptrend right here. I haven't seen anybody talking about this on YouTube. Perhaps I just missed it, but this is an uptrend that I've noticed that I've noticed has been quite significant over the last 36 to 48 hours on Bitcoin. As you can see, this uptrend is drawn by connecting this top as the pivot point and this top as the set point. If you guys aren't familiar with that terminology, that's probably because that is my terminology. I call the first point over here on a trend line the pivot point because that's the direction that the thing pivots around, and then the set point right over here. So we have our pivot point right over here, our set point right over here for the trend line, and then we have a bunch of resistance up here where Bitcoin has been getting resistance and testing up here. And this has really been one of the factors that has pushed Bitcoin sideways. In my opinion anyway, Bitcoin getting resistance up here has been one of the things that has been pushing Bitcoin sideways. And like I've talked about, this is very reminiscent of price action that we saw back over here in July when Bitcoin was first hitting its head up against $7,000 or $7,500 when it was starting a new rally. We saw Bitcoin hitting its head against an uptrend, and then that pushed Bitcoin sideways. Now, granted, that was a much more gradual uptrend. That was this uptrend connecting $6,500 to the low over here at $7,000, which that's an interesting level. We'll be talking about that in a second. But because we were hitting our head against an uptrend, that pushed Bitcoin sideways for a long time, and Bitcoin just continually hit his head up against here until finally the bulls had enough of it and pushed us through there and continued the rally. That's definitely a possibility for what's going to happen to Bitcoin here over the next couple of days, but I think there's more of a chance of Bitcoin having at least several days of sideways trading action or a small correction, because Bitcoin has been running quite significantly. It's been running quite well over the last couple of days. We can see Bitcoin here has just been doing quite phenomenally. It's jumped about $1,000 in the last week or so, down here from around 62.50 to a recent high of up here around 71.25, about a 15% move in the last week or so. Definitely not something that is unprecedented in the Bitcoin market, but also definitely something that could warrant a small correction. One other thing that we want to talk about is the importance of the price level of $7,000, because like I hinted at just a second ago, that was an important level not too long ago in the Bitcoin market, because the Bitcoin market did actually have a bottom right over here at around $7,020 right here in the long term, and really the longest downtrend that we've seen in this bear market, from $10,000 down here to $5,750. Bitcoin had a little stop here at $7,000 and tried to get a little bounce here, because at the time we had this symmetrical triangle pattern. We didn't have the descending triangle pattern. With the symmetrical triangle pattern here, and a lot of people, including myself, thought that this was going to be the bottom and we'd see a more substantial rally, but in fact what we saw is Bitcoin set a double top up here, if memory serves correctly, and yes it did. Right up here, Bitcoin set a double top and Bitcoin continued to go lower. But for a time anyway, $7,000 did prove to be a level of support, which is now one of the reasons it's proving as a level of resistance. That lines up with this uptrend that we've been looking at here earlier on in the video. So with both of these levels of resistance in mind, I definitely think there's a possibility that Bitcoin can break through them. I don't necessarily think Bitcoin breaking straight through them in the next 24 to 48 hours is the most likely scenario, though. What I think is more than likely is that Bitcoin is going to be trading sideways here for the next couple of days, or indeed that we may see a correction down here below this 20 EMA on the 4-hourly chart, down here to maybe somewhere around $6,800, $6,900, or maybe even just a little bit under $7,000. I could very easily see Bitcoin coming down to that all-important level of support that we've seen on the chart before of $6,800. If we check right here, that would put Bitcoin pulling back to right about here. I could very easily see Bitcoin coming down a little bit and then continuing the rally. I think the rally is still in a very healthy state, and I do think the rally is going to continue. But at the same time, guys, it's never a bad thing for Bitcoin to calm down a little bit, cool off a little bit, reset its stochastic RSI, which we're about to look at, and then be able to actually get its energy back so that it can continue the rally. So let's talk about the stochastic RSI, because I haven't talked about that recently, and there is something that we want to look at on the stochastic RSI. So let's go ahead and get stochastic RSI up here. Stochastic RSI is kind of like RSI. I'm not going to get in depth about how each one of them are calculated. But the reason that we want to talk about the stochastic RSI is because typically the stochastic RSI on the daily chart is a good way to measure short-term overbought and oversold conditions on Bitcoin. Normal RSI is a much slower indicator. It'll give you a better idea of shorter-term price movement. Maybe the way that you'd use stochastic RSI on the daily chart is how you might use RSI on the 4-hourly chart or something to that effect. Typically, stochastic RSI is much better at telling you more definitively about where an overbought market is and where an oversold market is, and it's much better at telling you that much quicker. And as we can see down here on the stochastic RSI, Bitcoin has gotten up here around its 100 level, and stochastic RSI has been indicating that Bitcoin has been overbought for the last several days here. And nevertheless, Bitcoin did start its little rally here in defiance of the stochastic RSI, which has happened before. We watched that happen over here, where Bitcoin, in defiance of the stochastic RSI, still had one last leg up on the rally. But the stochastic RSI will normally have its way and force the market to come back down a little bit if you stay up here in overbought territory for too long. So based on the fact that we've been up here in overbought territory on the Stochastic RSI for so long, I could very easily see a correction coming down in the next couple of days. Typically, the Stochastic RSI is a very good indicator of telling you when a market is about to do something, because the Stochastic RSI, like I talked about just a second ago, is quite a fast indicator, and typically it does force the market to do certain things. We can see right here, if I bring the crosshairs out over here, we're going to see this. Right over here, when the Stochastic RSI was pulling down here to its mid-region, what you don't see too often. Normally, the Stochastic RSI will go to one extreme to the other, but when it was pulling down here to its mid-region, that did indicate the bottom. When it was up here in its upper region, up around 100, it indicated a high. When it was down here, it indicated overbought, and then we went on the rally. When we got overbought, we started coming down, came down here, got oversold, and now we're back up here at overbought. So you can kind of see from just the history, if you analyze it a little bit, this normally Stochastic RSI does, it is a leading indicator about where the market is going to go. And right now, the Stochastic RSI would suggest over the next couple of days, we're more than likely going to see a small correction on Bitcoin. How large is that correction going to be? I don't know. I wouldn't expect Bitcoin to go much below $6,800, which would line up pretty well with recent resistance recent support and resistance that we saw on the neckline of this inverse head and shoulders pattern and on the 20 daily EMA. I very much want to stay above the 20 daily EMA. So what I would actually like to see Bitcoin do to reset the Stochastic RSI would be to come down here to around $6,800, get a bounce, a very definitive bounce off of the 20 daily EMA, and then continue the rally from there and break through some other levels of resistance like this uptrend if it's still in play. May not be important because it's an uptrend and it may just be out of the way by then, and also $7,000 again. I am still very bullish on Bitcoin. I want to make that very clear. I'm still very bullish on Bitcoin. I think the rally is still in full effect, but at the same time, during every rally, you're going to see retracements, and during every bear market, you're going to see little jump ups in price action. Perhaps that's what we're seeing right now, but the fact of the matter is I do believe that Bitcoin is still in a rally. I do believe that Bitcoin is still going to go north, and I do think Bitcoin is going to still be going north to test levels of resistance, such as the 200 daily EMA sitting up here around $7,800 coming over the next 2 weeks or so. But like I said, with that in mind, we also have to keep in mind that the possibility of a correction to reset things like the Stochastic RSI, bring the normal RSI down a little bit, is by absolutely no means a bad thing for the market. In fact, I would argue it's a very, very healthy thing for the market. One more thing that we want to talk about before we wrap the video up is the Bitcoin shorts chart. We've talked about the Bitcoin shorts chart quite extensively over the last couple of days, and that's because it's got a lot of interesting things going on with the Bitcoin shorts chart. If we look here on the Bitcoin shorts chart, the Bitcoin shorts are starting to crash. We're not seeing an April style short squeeze where the shorts literally, we just lost about 15,000 shorts all at once, but the Bitcoin shorts have been dropping off very, very quickly, and that has been playing a role in this in this northerly price action that we've been seeing. One thing I want to point out is that as we can see over here on the last two candlesticks, Bitcoin's basically been trading sideways, while on the last two candlesticks, or at least on this candlestick, Bitcoin shorts dropped dramatically. And normally what you would like to see when the Bitcoin shorts drop dramatically is Bitcoin moving up dramatically. Now, when you don't see that happen, that typically is an indication that the bears are rather strong, because if the bulls were stronger than the bears were in this case, then they would be able to use that momentum that they got from all these shorts being covered and all these shorts being liquidated to push the price even higher. So the fact that the shorts have been dropping so substantially over the last 3 days and Bitcoin hasn't been rising so substantially over the last 3 days, bar this one day right here, that does indicate to me that the bears are getting a little bit stronger, which also lines up with our very short-term technical analysis in relation to the daily Stochastic RSI. Tell me what you think about the way I just did that analysis in the comments down below. I don't think I've ever talked about that. No, I take that back. I talked about that once, where when you see the price action contradicting the shorts chart, then that typically gives you an idea of how strong the bulls and the bears are. That's definitely something I've noticed over the last couple of weeks, is that normally when the price action on the chart doesn't line up with the shorts chart, then that normally gives you some indication as to how strong the bulls and the bears are. And as we're going to be talking about in the course, which is launching in September, gauging the strength of the bulls and the bears is extraordinarily important for doing your technical analysis. But anyway, guys, as always, tell me in the comment section down below, what do you think? Where is Bitcoin going? Is Bitcoin going to break this uptrend on the hourly chart that we've talked about today in the next couple of hours? Is Bitcoin going to be breaking north? Are we going to see the rally just skyrocket? Is Bitcoin going to moon up here to like $8,000 over the next couple of days? Is Bitcoin going to trade sideways for a week or so like we saw back over here in July? Or are we going to see a correction, which I think is probably the most likely scenario of the three scenarios? Is probably like a 40 to a 50% chance that Bitcoin sees a small correction down a couple of $100 over the next 48 to 72 hours or so. With that in mind, I want to make very, very clear, I think the Bitcoin rally is still in full swing, and I don't think the Bitcoin rally is under threat. I just also think that we could definitely use a little correction after the good gains that we've seen over the last week or so. But like I said, tell me in the comment section down below, what do you think? I'm interested, as always, to hear your opinions, guys. I do love reading the comments. If you haven't already, go ahead and join the Discord server. There's a link to do so down below. We passed 1,000 subscribers, we passed 1,000 members a couple of days ago, about a week and a half ago by now, actually. And we had about 50 people join today because I plugged it in yesterday's video. We have a great community going over there. I do try to welcome every single one of you guys. It is kind of hard because there's so many of you now. If I don't welcome you and you do want to talk to me, just type @CryptoJeb. That'll give me a notification and I will read your message. But anyway, guys, that's going to do it for this video. I want to thank each and every single one of you for watching as always, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.